Hello, stranger, put your loving hand in mine. Hello, stranger, put your loving hand in mine. You are a stranger, and you're a friend of mine. Get up, rounder, let a working man lay down. Get up, rounder, let a working man lay down. You are a rounder, and you are down and out. Everybody sing with me. Hello, stranger. Hello, stranger, put your loving hand in mine. Hello, stranger, put your loving hand in mine. You are a stranger, and you're a pal of mine. Every time I ride that 6th and 4th Street car, every time I ride that 6th and 4th Street car, I can see my baby peeping through the bars. She bowed her head and she waved both hands at me. She bowed her head and waved both hands at me. I'm prison bound, I'm longing to be free. Hello, stranger, put your loving hand in mine. Hello, stranger, put your loving hand in mine. You are a stranger, and you're a pal of mine. Oh, I'll see you when your troubles are like mine. I will see you when your troubles are like mine. Oh, I'll see you when you haven't got a dime. Weeping like a willow and mourning like a dove. Weeping like a willow and mourning like a dove. Got a girl up country that I really love. Hello, stranger, you put the love in mine. Hello, stranger, put your loving heart, put your loving hand in mine. You are a stranger, and you're a pal of mine. One more time. Hello, stranger, put your loving hand in mine. Oh, hello, stranger, put your loving hand in mine. You are a stranger, you are a friend of mine. Yeehaw.
Good morning. I'll invite everyone to silence their cell phones if they haven't already done so, and then I'll invite us to greet one another and taking care to make sure that everyone around us gets greeted. And there will be more time for conversation at the end of the service. I'm delighted to invite Janet up to read our land acknowledgement this morning.
We acknowledge that we are residents or visitors on land that was never ceded, never given up by the Nisenan people, who are still here among us despite the fraudulent removal of their federal tribal recognition. We seek to help correct their erasure and exclusion from California history and to support their efforts to stabilize their people. We place this basket of black oak acorns on our altar to represent the continued commitment of our community to these efforts.
A shared story by Reverend Sandra Fees. For the stories that long to be told and retold, for the stories that long to be imagined and reimagined, for the stories that long to be envisioned and celebrated, we kindle this chalice. May its flame bring the light of different truths, different paths, and different voices, all needed to cultivate a transformative story of justice, love, and beauty.
And let's sing the children on their way to Kids Connection with this little light. Good morning. My name is Randy McKean, your worship associate for this morning's service. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Community of the Mountains. The theme for our January services is story. So it took me a few listening sessions to tease out the story told in our opening song, Hello, Stranger. Originally recorded by the so-called founding family of country music, the Carters, A.P. Carter, his wife Sarah, and her sister Maybelle. It was a song given to them by an African-American man named Leslie Riddle, or Esley to his friends. Riddle accompanied A.P. on his song collecting expeditions across their native North Carolina and is credited with influencing Maybelle's guitar style. The song has been recorded several times by Bill Monroe, Flatt and Scruggs, Doc Watson, and more recently, Rhiannon Giddens and the Carolina Chocolate Drops. They're an amazing band, and they're reuniting soon for some shows. Verses have been reordered or rewritten to strengthen the narrative. Rhythms have been changed over the years, but the basic sentiment is the same. It's a tale of someone down and out, someone at the lowest point in life who nonetheless seeks friendship. The narrator trusts that this stranger, perhaps someone in similar circumstances, perhaps not, will, upon hearing their story, be a friend and help them through this difficult time. So friendships and community often arise from shared experiences, but the cement comes from sharing our stories, creating stories, hearing stories. It's how we make sense of ourselves, others, and the world we live in through the tales we tell one another. They can be soul-bearing narratives, autobiographical snippets, personal observations, or fantastical speculations, tales tall or life-sized, real or imagined. It's how we organize, order, fashion our pasts, presents, and futures. These events in this moment are part of the tale. Welcome to the story. What tales do we have to tell one another today?
Good morning again. I'm Sophia McKean, and I will be offering a sermon today that I wrote as part of Kevin's sermon writing class last year. As Randy said, we're delving into the theme of stories. And when I hear the word stories, the first thing that comes to mind for me is my earliest engagement with them, dragons and ballerinas and talking rocks of children's stories. But today we'll be stepping past books that begin once upon a time and engaging with the idea of history as a story. As our current political climate has probably made many of us aware, our country is full of different stories of our history, sometimes stories that are quite different. History is not a static thing. It's a story that gets told and then retold. The version of American or California history that you now hold true might be quite different from the one that you learned in middle school. I know mine is. And even now, we are uncovering new pieces of our history, which were lost or purposefully obscured. How do we engage with this ever-changing history and find our place in it? I think art is one answer. Art allows us to recognize, reclaim, and play with the fact that history is a story as much as anything else is. Later in the service, I'll be speaking about a few artists who have used their craft to do just that, with a focus on Beyonce and her recent album, Cowboy Carter. On Cowboy Carter, Beyonce is exploring, among other things, the history of Black country music, and that history is a rich one. Each song on the album is different from the last, pulling first one thing and then another from a diverse, multi-century canon. It's something best unfolded to you over multiple listens, something which sent me researching where a reference or musical choice came from. So I'll invite you, if this service sparks your interest, to explore the album in your own time, or to search for what piece of art most sparks your interest and engagement with some other piece of history obscured. There's a whole world of stories out there. I'm looking forward to exploring just a few of them this morning. And now I would like to invite us to get comfortable in our chairs, close our eyes if we feel comfortable. As we enter on this month-long journey of storytelling, I want to go back to that first experience of storytelling that I talked about. For me, a piece of storytelling that makes me feel really at peace is childhood storytelling, and that might be the same for you. Or if not, I'll invite us to just each think back to a time that we either told a story or were told a story, and it felt really comforting and safe. So maybe you're picturing being read a story as a child at bedtime. Maybe you're picturing hearing a scary story around a fire, but knowing you were actually really safe. Or maybe it's a story that a friend told you about yourself that helps you see yourself in a new way. Whatever that story is, I'll invite you not to focus so much on the content, but just to find that feeling inside and just sit for a minute or two with the feeling of what storytelling can bring to us.
Every Sunday, we are reminded that the story of each of our lives does not unfold in a vacuum, but that we live, tell, and untangle the meaning of our life stories together. In a moment, I will invite you to come forward, if you're so moved, to place a stone into the bowl representing the place that you are now in your particular story, and the way your own joy and sorrow is held in community among our many joys and sorrows. I invite us to remain silent and present to one another during this time. For those of you on Zoom, you're invited to type your joy and sorrow into the chat, or to type a 0 or O to represent placing a stone or unspoken joy or sorrow. I invite you now to come forward. I placed a few stones in the bowl for those joys and sorrows that remain in our hearts, and stories that may not yet be expressed. Please rise as you're willing and able to sing Return Again.
Return. Wooed into This World by Reverend Scott Taylor. Who dreamed you into being? What stories sat in their heart as they imagined what you would become? Who helped you imagine your story? Who helped you see your place in the story of the world? And what maybe matters the most, who helped you understand that you could be the author of your own unfolding? All of which is a way of asking, who listened? Who listened until you could hear yourself speak, until you trusted the voice that is your own? And now that you know what it is like to have the tale of yourself be heard into being, how might you midwife the story of another into existence? You know the kinds of stories I'm talking about. Those kept in cramped spaces of silence for fear of how hard and narrow this world of ours can be. Who needs your listening so that their story can be set free? Whose story needs held in your heart so it knows it is worth entering the world? We say it is about listening, but it's really about love. It is through affection that our stories are born. They are wooed into this world. Never forget that, nor this. It is through loving the stories of others and the stories of our own that we discover they love us back. So be it. Amen.
As some of you may have heard, Beyonce has gone country. Beyonce, who has won 32 Grammys and had 9 #1 hits over the course of her career, had previously released almost exclusively pop, R&B, and the occasional rock song. In March of 2024, however, she put out a country album called Cowboy Carter. Back in 2016, Beyonce faced racist backlash after she performed her, at the time, only country song, Daddy Lessons, at the Country Music Awards. She's since discussed how that experience led her to delve into the Black roots of country music, which in turn led her to create Cowboy Carter. As we heard a bit about when we sang Hello Stranger earlier this morning, country music does indeed have deep roots in Black culture, but these roots are often unacknowledged in wider American culture. Before I began learning about this history, I was familiar with the work of Hank Williams and Johnny Cash, but not so much with Rufus Teapot Payne or Gus Cannon, the Black guitar players who were Hank and Johnny's teachers. The Black history of country has often been purposefully obscured by white people. For example, record companies in the early 20th century would often not credit Black musicians. These same companies would also often use photos of white performers on the album covers of Black musicians' records. What do you do when your history has been purposefully and deliberately obscured? Beyonce's new album seems to be one answer to that question. On it, she doesn't seek to fully recreate sounds of the past. Instead, she deftly combines elements of past and present country. Music journalist Charlie Harding describes one of her songs as spaghetti western hip-hop. It mixes the distinctive lonesome whistle of spaghetti western soundtracks with Beyonce rapping. There's also what he calls trap fiddle music, in which a guitar plays a melody evocative of traditional Celtic music over beats pulled from hip-hop subgenre trap. The list goes on. The record also both samples iconic Black musicians from country's history and features modern Black country stars. Music critic Marcus K. Dowling, in discussing her album, says, "There's these moments in popular music where people who are smarter than you in the room will tell you that you're making a song that already existed, that everybody forgot. I think that she essentially got tired of hearing about all of these songs that everybody forgot, and she's making all of the songs to fill in all of the holes in the Black popular music canon. Essentially, what I see him saying is that her interpretation of country as a genre is so wide-ranging because each song is influenced by and builds on a different piece of Black country music history. She's creating almost an imagined history book of sorts. Journalist Zach Safford, in discussing Beyonce's transformative approach to country's history, says he often sees country music as understanding the past as better than the present, but discusses how, for Black people, that doesn't ring true. Because she cannot or does not want to romanticize the past, Beyonce uses elements of history to build a vision of the future. Zach, who is a Black gay man, calls this approach to making the album queer, explaining, "I'm thinking of queerness more of as a theoretical framework, of how we as minorities live on the edges of society, and we have to fight this normative power to be seen, to be heard, and to create histories and stories." Queer history, like Black history, is riddled with holes. As the art curator Claire Barlow puts it, there is rarely a smoking gun. That is, queer people in history did not always document their queerness, often because it was dangerous to do so. For historical paintings with queer themes, we may not have a corresponding diary or letter that says explicitly whether the artist's roommate was really a roommate or a life partner. And Barlow points out that much of the art which did clearly portray gay relationships, love, and identity have been deliberately destroyed or simply unpreserved. This lack of a smoking gun used to drive me crazy. When I first came out as gay at age 18, I became obsessed with LGBT history. When you come out, you are suddenly ushered into a new community, a new subculture. Since many of us who are gay or trans do not have biological family members in the LGBT community, it means that the history of our community cannot be passed on as easily as, say, grandma's recipe for apple pie. I wanted to understand gay history because I wanted to put myself in context. Normative straight models for doing things can feel restrictive even for those of us not in the LGBT community. I know many straight women who refuse to shave their legs, or straight couples still working to unpack expectations around who will do the cooking and cleaning. Queer culture and history offers a model for how to build a self-identity or interpersonal relationship outside of constrictive norms. History teaches us how to be ourselves. For me, when I find a queer person somewhere in the pages of history, I often feel a moment of recognition that makes me pause. That oh feeling is a moment of expanded possibility. Here is how someone else fell in love or broke away from gender roles that didn't feel right. Here's how I might do that too. Queer history, then, is a creative force, a means of imagining an expanded future. However, I'd often read a book or hear a song that resonated with me as a gay person, only to discover that it was unclear whether or not the artist themselves was gay. I'd feel disappointed, then keep the song or book at a distance, somehow not feeling I could fully claim it or let it inform my own experiences. But this is where Zach Safford's idea of queer history as a created history comes in. When Claire Barlow put together a queer British art exhibit, which was a historical retrospective, she included works by artists whose queer identity is unknown. I got to see this exhibit when I was 21. There in London, I walked through a show where an established curator openly proclaimed that some of it was ambiguous. Was every artist on display queer? No one could be sure. And yet there these paintings were, up on the walls, included anyway. In the book accompanying the show, Barlow acknowledges that queer readings of these works are not all definitive. She calls them queer interpretations and says, "This book offers the chance to see what happens when such interpretations are given center stage. What possibilities open up? What new questions are we prompted to ask?" Barlow's standards for inclusion in her queer canon were not definitive historical proof, but instead artistic resonance. It's a creative history. It doesn't try to prove to people who would believe otherwise that queer people have always existed. It doesn't take a straight cis experience as default and work to find that smoking gun of queerness. Instead, It allows us to luxuriate in anywhere we as queer people see ourselves in art. It seeks to serve us, to reaffirm what we have always known. To reaffirm not just what we have always known, that we have always been here, but also that we have always and will continue to create works of beauty, works that show us how to live and how to live well. Rhiannon Giddens, a musician featured on Beyonce's new album, has discussed her experience growing up as a Black banjo player. She describes experiencing, quote, an extra musical feeling when I played, an eventually unshakable belief that when I played my banjo, I was connecting with my ancestors in a way that I can only describe as spiritual. Nowhere, however, could she find evidence that the banjo had ever been a ceremonial instrument. That is, until a new history of the banjo was published in 2022, which documented how the banjo was a creation of Black Americans and initially had distinctly spiritual uses. Rhiannon describes how reading this new history felt like being told, quote, yes, there is a Santa Claus. You knew it all along. That yes, this precious artifact was more than a dance instrument for our people. Those feelings could be footnoted. It was incredible. In Rhiannon's case, what she felt for so long was eventually backed up through painstaking traditional research. We now know that the history of the banjo is indeed deeply rooted in her Black ancestors' past as an instrument of spiritual significance. Yet that research was only just published 2 years ago, even when she had felt connected to that truth for decades. And there are no doubt pieces of Black history that lie completely inaccessible to us even now. And there are also, no doubt, those in our community who are Black Americans and who have felt that history as Rhiannon did, who, even if history will never say for certain, have had moments of joyful recognition of themselves through the process of creating or engaging with art. I'm thinking again of how Zach Safford said, we as minorities live on the edges of society, and we have to fight this normative power to be seen, to be heard, and to create histories and stories. To create histories and stories. How does one create history? Beyonce has done it. There is a time and a place that academic histories where every detail can be footnoted are important. And there are times when the burden of proof does not serve people whose histories have been unpreserved, disregarded, and warped by those in power. To be sure, Beyonce put painstaking research into the creation of Cowboy Carter. And engaging with the music and lyrical references, for people who might not already know it, will open up a rich world of Black country history that we have preserved. But she did not stop with what was known. She transformed it in a way that makes it all her own, that keeps it living. Art allows us to bridge the gaps between what we know and what we feel, to take ownership of our past. History is not a static thing. Pieces of it are lost or obscured over time. Researchers with different agendas work to uncover and preserve pieces of it, and their work is often illuminating and essential. But history does not end there in academic works for us to be passive audiences to. History belongs to us all. It can be played with, reinvigorated. This is an invitation to us all. What histories have you not paid close attention to before? And what might they tell you about possible futures? What parts of your own history have you felt cut off from, like they weren't yours to own? What would it feel like to let yourself own them? To let imagination and creativity move you from what was to what might be.
Good morning. I invite you to contribute to our offering today, 50% of which will support Sierra Roots, an organization which serves chronically homeless individuals by building personal relationships and providing immediate needs of nutritious hot meals, clothing, and shelter, especially during severe weather events in the communities of Nevada City and Grass Valley. We were going to have Nick Wilczek speak to us today. I don't think he's here today. But it's a great organization. We have given to them in the past, and this is the month for them. Cypress is going to show a slide of other ways to give. Those of you at home or here, if you don't have cash or would like to do that, invite the ushers to come forward. Thank you for your generosity. We dedicate these offerings to the ideal that we can all be recognized, have our needs met, and be renewed in a circle of shared humanity and community caring. And I'd like to do some thank yous. Thank you to Toby for the music today, to Janet, Jax, and Sasha for reading today, to Andy and Cypress back there doing the AV. I want to thank Eileen Hale, our chat host, Linda Siska for the great altar setting. I want to thank Gwen, Jean, and Laura for greeting, Carol for pastoral care, refreshments. I want to thank Lori, Shannon, Keith. I think I saw other folks, Elizabeth back there, and Katz, and all of you that contributed to that. Kids Connection today is Jenny Dewey and Cheryl Spalding, because Lindsay Dunkel is sitting right there. So she can't be doing that. And if I've missed anyone, so just some announcements today. We have an intro to UUism. Well, Sophia, yes, of course. UU 101 today in the library. We have Eccentrics, Aging Backwards, Tuesday at 10 a.m. Humanism discussion group Wednesday morning at 10:45. Joys and Sorrows candlelight service. Sophia will be running that. That's Thursday night at 7. Music at 6:30. Arts and Crafts Circle meets Friday afternoon at 1 p.m. And I want to let you all know there's some emails going around. Our strategic planning workshop is on Saturday, January 18th, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's a RSVP link there. There's going to be an instant choir next Sunday, and we'll meet at 9 a.m. and meet in the sanctuary. We're going to sing at the service. It's going to be really fun. I'm part of the choir. And also, it's the holiday tree. If you have any ornaments on the tree today, it's time to retrieve them because the tree is going away. So if you can get your ornament today, that would be great. And then you can learn more about our services and upcoming events at our website, uugrassvalley.org. And we've got a closing song, Just As Long As I Have Breath. Please rise as you're willing and able.
closing words today come from Reverend Vanessa Southern. May the stories we tell name the largest truths of what was, of what is, and pull us forward to what should be, as stories were always meant to. And though we extinguish our chalice, we know that we will carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again. I hope to see you next Sunday for the service I am from. And for those of you here in the room, I hope you'll join us for refreshments in the back.